Some of you might be like, why does he have a computer up there? That's weird. And a microphone. What's going on? Some people can't make it to the Sunday school hour, so I record it and then put it on YouTube. So anybody that's not here, they can see it later and still keep up with lessons. More introduction stuff. Wisdom means skillful living. It is not this weird esoteric like thoughts about the ontology of the universe. Some of that's included, but that's not what it's about. That's more of a Greek way of thinking. A Hebrew way of thinking is skillful living. How am I supposed to live my life in a way that honors God? That's wisdom. It's practical living stuff. The men that built the tabernacle, they had a spirit of chokhmah, that's wisdom. They had skills to build the tabernacle. It was practical. They could put it together, and it fit together rightly. So wisdom is skillful living. It begins with the fear of the Lord, a humble respect for God's position and your position in relation to Him. And it includes knowledge, understanding, discretion, discernment, and obedience. To quote Anders in his Holman commentary, quote, Proverbs is to be used to help succeeding generations to be successful in life, primarily by contrasting the difference between the wise person and the fool. Proverbs are, quote, brief, catchy statements of truth, unquote, that are generally true. They are not technically true in every situation. This is an incredibly important principle when you're reading Proverbs. You cannot read Proverbs, pull something out, and go, this is absolutely true in every single case. That's not what Proverbs is about. They are general truths, but they're short and pithy, catchy, so that way you get the truth value of it very quickly. And you can remember it and you can chew it over and see how it applies in different situations. It might not apply in every situation, and that's okay. It's just a proverb. It's just a general truth. Like, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Is that technically true? No. But if you exercise and eat healthy, generally you won't have as many ailments and have to go see the doctor. But if you go, well, an apple a day with, the right balance of carbs and proteins, and you just start adding every situation that you need to have a healthy life, like, it's no longer a proverb. You're not going to remember it. It's not going to be catchy. It's not a proverb anymore. So don't take them as technically true all the time for every situation. Also, proverbs are not promises, but general statements of truth. This is also incredibly important, and it links up with the idea that they're not supposed to be technically true in every situation. For example, like, train up a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it. Is that absolutely true every single time? You could probably think of some situations where you're like, but that didn't happen. Right? Yeah, yeah. What does old mean, right? But they're not promises. They're just general truths. If you live wisely, generally your life will go well. They're general truths. So that's like the big framework. We spent many weeks going over that kind of stuff, but you got to have that in mind before you start looking at these individual proverbs, which we will start doing right now. All right, so lives of integrity. Lives of integrity. So, integrity, this is your life and what you do, living according to a standard. In our case, we want to live to God's standard. And when your life and your words, your speech and your actions, when they mesh up with what God's truth declares, then you're living a life of integrity. When you say you're a Christian, but then you do things that are unchristianly, that's the opposite of having integrity. It means to be whole, to be complete, to like hold together, kind of, is the idea. To have integrity. So, what can we learn about integrity? Well, integrity is a firm foundation for life, and it protects. It protects. It's a shield. It protects you. So, Proverbs 10:9. He that walketh uprightly walketh surely, but he that perverteth his ways shall be known. So, uprightly, that's the word for integrity. It means complete or whole. But notice, someone who has integrity, they walk surely. Their foot doesn't stumble. They are confident. They have a clear mind. There's no fear. There's a clear conscience. Practical righteousness is security. I'll say that again. Practical righteousness is secure. It is security. And you're the one living this out. You're practicing this. That's what it means to be blameless. This word in Hebrew is tam. It could be translated as, what did I just say? Blameless. It could be blameless. So when somebody accuses you of something, and they try to point at something in your life, if you have integrity, what they point at isn't true. What evidence are they going to bring against you? Except that you're godly. Because you're a man or woman of integrity. If you have integrity, it is protection. It is secure. You can walk with confidence. You can live your life. So to walk, that's a metaphor for living your life. You can walk surely. But he that perverteth his ways shall be known. A fool takes crooked paths, and this will be found out. Their ways shall be known. It'll be found out, and then they'll be brought to shame because they'll be exposed for the fraud that they are. This is the person that goes to temple, makes all the right sacrifices, declares their own righteousness, and then is discovered in a scandal that they're not actually living that way. It will be found out, and they'll be brought to shame. Integrity is a firm foundation that protects. Proverbs 13:6. Righteousness keepeth him that is upright in the way, but wickedness overthroweth the sinner. So again, righteousness keepeth. That word keepeth means guard or protect. So your righteousness protects him that is upright, again, integrity, in the way that they live their life. So it preserves, it is security for those in the way of integrity. But wickedness, so this is evil attitudes and behavior, it destroys. It ruins the life of the sinner because sin is self-destructive. That's what sin does. Sin separates you from the only thing that's good in the universe, which is God. It makes a break. It separates you from him. And then it turns in on itself and then just decays, corrupts, and eats away. That's what sin does. It's self-destruction. So in marriage, what marriage can provide is real intimacy with another human being. Someone that can know you deeply and that you can know them deeply. And you can share things. You can share intimacy, right? And you can be known by someone and they're okay with it. They're okay with you. They accept you and they try and encourage you to live your life. That's real intimacy. But when you go and you try and find that, we'll say, one's present. So let's say you try and find physical fulfillment outside of that. What you're trying to do is fill that, you're trying to fill that need for real intimacy with something that's false, something that's not real. And there's a little bit of pleasure to it, grant that, but it robs you of the real intimacy with your spouse. So what you think you're getting, you're not actually getting. It just destroys you. Self-destructive. Moralism is the same way. It leads people to think that they're better than others and that they deserve a better life than they actually have. It robs them of the joy that comes from being grateful for what God has actually provided for them. Nothing is ever good enough for the moral person that upholds their own morality as their thing. But righteousness protects the person that has integrity. Proverbs 28:18, whoso walketh uprightly shall be saved, but he that is perverse in his ways shall fall at once. You're gonna be like, whoa, this is really repetitive. It's almost like we need to hear it over and over again. So again, uprightly, integrity. What does this word saved mean? It means helped and delivered. What are you delivered from? From the ruin of sin. So again, there's security in integrity. But the perverse person, that's the morally corrupt person, if they're morally corrupt in your ways, there's going to be a collapse. You're going to come to ruin, and eventually there'll be death. That's what sin gets you. Along with integrity, you're free from guilt. The way of a man is froward, strange. It's a very general truth. Just like ponder that. So, froward means crooked, not straightforward, deceptive. So, just the way of a man is deceptive. Strange. What does strange mean? It means laden with guilt. Like, ponder that for like a half an hour. Do you deceive yourself in your ways? So, the way of a man is crooked, it's not straightforward, and it's laden with guilt. But as for the pure, that means the morally upright, right? His work is right. And right means having moral integrity. It's in accordance with the standard. So you're in keeping with God's law. So there's a contrast here, right? There's the froward man, and then there's the pure. There's the one with integrity. Your work, the one that works that way, is right. It's in accordance with the standard. Very quickly. Integrity is more than ankle deep. It goes deeper into you. The thoughts of the wicked are an abomination to the Lord, but the words of the pure are pleasant words. So notice there's there's a couple of ideas here. There's thoughts and words, right? The thoughts of the wicked are an abomination, but the words of the pure. So there's a comparison. Thoughts are the beginning of words. And then there's a comparison of the wicked and the pure. Now, from Garrett in his New American Commentary, he has this to say about the words abomination and clean, which is interesting. Abomination and clean are terms used of sacrifices and other religious objects or activities that are either repugnant or acceptable to God. These are the same words that are used in Leviticus to describe sacrifice. They're either an abomination or clean. Back to Garrett. The words and thoughts of people may be either a pleasing sacrifice or a blasphemous sacrilege. So your integrity is not only how you behave, your outward actions that people can see. It's also in here, your way of thinking. Because your way of thinking will lead to your way of being, your way of doing. So your thoughts will lead to your words, which to your actions. So what you believe and why you believe it is incredibly important. You need to have that down. It needs to be based on the resurrection of Christ. Has to be. We'll get to that. Getting ahead of myself, right, Pastor? Oh, man. But beware of religious hypocrisy, where you might make all the right sacrifices and do all the right things, but fail to show mercy. And you remember Jesus saying, I'd rather see mercy than sacrifice. Like, go and learn what that means. I don't want your sacrifice. I'd rather see mercy. Proverbs 24, 8 and 9. He that deviseth to do evil, that's a plans in your mind. He that deviseth to do evil shall be called a mischievous person. Fun to say. The thought of foolishness is sin, and the scorner is an abomination to men. So, deviseth, that means to plan, to plot, to consider, to think. So he that deviseth, plans, thinks to do evil. So you can devise and plan to do good. You can totally do that. But you're not going to be a mischievous person, right? This is a schemer, the mischievous person. You have to manipulate things to get what they want. Those are those that plot and scheme to do evil. And the thought of foolishness is sin. And the scorner is an abomination to men. The scorner is one that ridicules and mocks the things of God. Garrett, in his New American Commentary, he says this: those who connive soon have a reputation for being connivers. The loss of a good name is no small penalty, since it is not easily regained. They are eventually found out. And then your schemes fall apart. And now what do you have? Nothing. Think of like any movie where there's plotting and scheming, where I'm going to get this thing, and it all just falls apart. That's what will happen. Integrity is a reminder of God's righteousness. It's a reminder of God's righteousness. The bloodthirsty hate the upright, hate him, but the just seek his soul. So again, there's a contrast here. Really short, pithy statement that contrasts good and evil. The wicked hate the righteous, but the just protect the righteous. The bloodthirsty, that means someone that has blood guilt, guilty of murder. Those who would not hesitate to murder in order to get what they want. Those kinds of people, they hate the people that have integrity. They hate the upright. And to hate, again, that means to abhor, detest, loathe, be hostile, have a feeling of open hostility and intense dislike towards another person. So the wicked person hates the person of integrity. Why? Well, 1 John 3, 11 and 12 tells us why, or at least it gives us an illustration of what's going on here. 1 John 3, 11 and 12. For this is the message that you've heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. That's not bloodthirsty. Hold on. Not as Cain. Oh, Cain and Abel. Boom, that story should just like immediately pop in your head. Like, what happened there? Who was of the wicked one and slew his brother. And that word slew, it means like to cut the throat and bleed out. And wherefore slew he him? Why did he do that? Why? Because his own works were evil. It had nothing, and his brother's righteous. Though Abel's works were righteous, Cain became jealous and then murdered his brother. That's kind of the process here. Daniel Aiken, in his New American Commentary on 1 John, he says, quote, in essence, Cain murdered his brother Abel because the wicked person hates righteousness, reminds them of God. That was my addition. Back to Aiken. Burdick adds, godlessness is disturbed by the condemning presence of righteousness in its midst, and it would remove the cause of its discomfort if it could. So the righteous person, the person who has integrity, the upright person, they are a reminder of God's standard. A consistent reminder that this other person is not meeting that standard. And so instead of going, oh man, I'm not living up to God's expectations, I need to change, I need to do better, I'll just get rid of the person that's making me feel this way. Then I can wallow in my sin and not feel bad about it. Yeah, it makes sense, right? So it's like, let me tear somebody else down so I can make myself feel better. So I can be above them. It doesn't actually, yeah. Like if you're on level ground right here, right? And then you tear somebody down, so like they go even lower. You haven't actually gone anywhere. Right? They've moved relative to you, but you haven't morally grew or anything. Go down. Like, don't do that. Build people up. And then you can both improve. Just imagine being at work and if everybody just helped everybody else instead of trying to tear somebody down so I can make myself feel better. Politics. All right. There are blessings that come along with integrity. And one of the benefits, and these are the results. You're reaping the results of integrity. What does that look like? One of the blessings is ability. So Proverbs 3:33 through 35. The curse of the Lord is in the house of the wicked, but he blesseth the habitation of the just. In each one of these, there's an A part and a B part, and it's just a comparison. Right? Surely he scorneth the scorners, but giveth grace unto the lowly. The wise shall inherit glory, but shame shall be the promotion of fools. So, Think of it this way. The Lord's curse, and this is banishment from the place of blessing. When you sin, you separate yourself from God. God has all blessings, and if you separate from him, then you're going to dwell in the house of the wicked. But you're not going to be in the place of blessing to receive it. The Lord's curse is on the wicked's house. But you go and dwell in that house. And what it reminded me of was Romans 1, where people who refuse to acknowledge God, who he is, and what he's done, eventually God gives them up to that. And then he says, if that's what you want, go have it. I'm not going to try it. Like, no, don't do that. It's bad for you. Don't do that. You're going to self-destruct in your sin. God tries to call you back. And eventually it's like, no, God, I want nothing to do with you. And he goes, fine, have it your way. See what happens. And he gives them up to a debased mind. That's terrifying. Like where you get to the point where God goes, okay, have it your way. Then you dwell in the house of the wicked, right? Then surely he scorns the scorners, right? He boomerangs the scorn back on the scornful because sin is self-destructive. And God exposes the fools to shame, but the shame shall be the promotion of fools. What does it look like for the just, right? He blesses the habitation of the just. This is empowerment with the ability to succeed, to live a wise, skillful life. God gives you the power to do that. And then there's grace, right? He giveth grace to the lowly. That's favor, kindness. And then there's glory. Associate, you shall inherit glory. That's honor and respect. Like, it's so good. It's so good if you follow the Lord. The results speak for themselves. So, knowing what the results will be if you follow the Lord, which should you choose? You have to choose. Have to choose. Choose this day whom you're going to serve. Who are you going to serve? What house are you going to dwell in? Are you going to dwell in the house of the wicked, or are you going to dwell in the house of the just? You're going to seek wisdom or be a fool? There's satisfaction. Satisfaction. The Lord will not suffer the soul of the righteous to famish, but he casteth away the substance of the wicked. So the Lord, right? So to put it positive, that's a negative statement, right? The Lord will not suffer the soul of the righteous to famish. To put it positively, the Lord satisfies the appetite of the righteous. And the Lord thwarts the evil craving of the wicked. So as long as you have rightly ordered loves, they will be satisfied. Just don't make a good thing a God thing. Don't make a good thing a God thing. There are so many good things in this world. Like, just think of, take a sip of coffee. It's a pretty good thing. Like, really good thing. But if you sacrifice the more important things in your life to serve ultimate cup of coffee or the perfect smell of perfume, or you get so laser focused on something that you reject showing mercy to others, that you don't dwell in community and build up others, you're wrong. Like, you've turned a good thing into a God thing, and you start sacrificing things to a good thing, but it's not God, and it can't satisfy you. Only God can satisfy that level of longing within you. That's the only one that can do it. And since we find this longing, C.S. Lewis said something similar to this. I don't have it quoted exactly, but if we find within ourselves a longing for a place that's not this world, then it must mean that we were made for another world. Like, if we find that everything in this world, it comes to an end. It's ephemeral. And they're good, but it doesn't last. Those good things are good, but only for so long. and what we desire is an eternal kind of life, then that desire really leads us outside of this world. And that's what we should seek after. But don't make good things God thing. This could be your family. This could be your wife, your husband-wife relationship. This could be your children. This could be name any good thing that's in your life. If you put it in the place of God, it will destroy you. And then you won't actually have the thing that you want. You'll destroy it. Because only God can sustain worship. If you start worshiping your wife, and then your wife does something not deserving of worship. Like if your well-being is wrapped up in your wife being happy, and then she's not happy, then your whole life goes to trash. But if your happiness is wrapped up in the righteousness of Christ and what he's done for you, it doesn't matter what happens. The circumstances could go absolutely insane, but that truth still remains because it's spiritual and it'll sustain you. And it's secure. But he casteth away the substance of the wicked. So the Lord throws away the desires of the wicked. Satisfaction, Proverbs 10:22. The blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow with it. Right? It's only through righteousness and wisdom that one can attain real security in life. It's not the wealth that gives them security, but rather the spiritual realities of righteousness and wisdom. That's how the righteous can have wealth without the trouble that often goes with it. Like, how many times have you heard the story of someone who wins the lottery and then their whole life just spins out of control? And it's like the worst thing that could have possibly happened to them. You think, oh man, I'm so rich. This is great. And then, Aunt so-and-so comes out of the woodworks like, I really need help. Or didn't pay taxes on all that money. Now the government's after you. Like, there's so many troubles that come along with being rich. But if you have wisdom and righteousness, right, the blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow with it. Righteous can have wealth without the trouble that often goes with it. No, you can also, but again, that's a general truth. You can totally mishandle money, and it can cause lots of trouble. But someone who has integrity, someone who has righteousness and wisdom, they'll be secure with it. Again, security. Proverbs 10:24-25. The fear of the wicked, it shall come upon him, but the desire of the righteous shall be granted. As the whirlwind passeth, so is the wicked no more, but the righteous is an everlasting foundation. So the wicked fear the consequences of their sinful actions, and they will not escape. There's the fear of being found out. Just think in your own life where you've engaged in sin and you've tried to hide it. Don't act like you haven't. Like, this is why we come to church, so we can worship the one who can help us. Like, be honest here, right? But think back to that time where you do something that you know you're not supposed to do, but you indulge it. And then you're terrified of being found out. Like, I hope my wife doesn't look at my phone. I need to clear all the history. Right? I gotta do this, and I gotta make sure, I gotta think 2 steps ahead, and so that way I can guard against her finding out. Right? And then she might say something. Does she know? Wait, she probably doesn't. I need to act as if she doesn't know. You're just terrified the whole time. Why do we do that to ourselves? It will come upon you. It'll come out eventually. You might as well just confess your sin and forsake it. And Jesus Christ will cleanse you from all unrighteousness. Like, it's that simple. It's not easy, but it is that simple. Just confess your sin. But the desires of the righteous, they'll be granted. Right? There's a note in the Net Bible. As the metaphor compares the righteous to an everlasting foundation to stress that they are secure when the catastrophes of life come along. He is fixed in a covenantal relationship and needs not fear passing misfortunes. The wicked has no such security. It should remind you of Jesus at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. Like, reread that. As the whirlwind passeth, so the wicked is no more, but the righteous is an everlasting foundation. In Matthew 7:24, at the end of Matthew 7, I quoted most of the chapter. Anyways, Jesus at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, he says that the wise person builds their house on a foundation of stone, not a foundation of sand. Because when the whirlwind comes and it beats against that house, the one built on the sand will fall. And the fall will be great. It'll be catastrophic. The one that's founded on a rock, it's sure. It has an everlasting foundation. It's almost as if Jesus read the Proverbs. There's security. Last one. The righteous man wisely considereth the house of the wicked, but God overthroweth the wicked for their wickedness. So, the righteous can learn much from seeing the self-destruction of the wicked from their wickedness. You can be saved from so much trouble if you learn from other people's example. They wisely consider. They think about it. They chew it over. It's like the cow that's just standing in the field. Do I really want to do, but you have to consider it. So is it wrong to think about wicked things? Depends what you mean, Gerald, right? It depends on the context. Man, it's almost like you've been in my class before. Depends on the context. Okay, you gotta keep moving. There's peace with integrity. When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Again, the Net Bible has a note. His lifestyle, it is that his lifestyle disarms his enemies. McCain, another commentary, comments that the righteous have the power to mend relationships. The life that is pleasing to God will be above reproach and find favor with others. So when a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Now, is that always true? No. Was Jesus perfect? Yeah, and he was slaughtered. Did he have peace with his enemies? No, they hung him on a tree. It's not always true, but generally, you live a life of integrity, you'll even have peace with your enemies. So now you get what you seek, you find, and you reap what you sow. There's so much of this in the book of Proverbs, and we're going to go really quickly through a lot of verses, but they all generally say this: what you seek after, that's what you're going to find. Or another way of putting it, you reap what you sow. So Proverbs 11:21. Though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not be unpunished, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. It doesn't matter how many people say evil is good. Doesn't matter if popular vote, popular opinion says this is the right thing. No, there is a standard, and it's God's word. That's it. Doesn't matter how many people go, that's outdated, it's antiquated, it doesn't matter. You need to just throw that away. Gosh, you're still reading that old Bible? Who cares? Doesn't matter. They can join hand in hand. They could strike up an alliance and, weird political bedfellows. I mean, just think of any of the things that are going on in our country, right? So how did those two groups get together? How can they, what? It doesn't make it. Doesn't matter. None of that matters. The wicked shall be punished because it's wicked. There is a standard and they don't meet up to it. The wicked will be convicted of sin and the righteous will be acquitted of all charges. What a statement of faith in the justice of God. It gets really confusing in this world, or it can. Doesn't matter. Have faith in the justice of God. I'm like, man, might as well stop here because oh my gosh, there's a we didn't even get to talking about suffering fools and God will judge and oh man, there's a lot more verses. I want to hit two in particular, and then we'll come back next week and talk more about this. But let's see, back go. Yeah, that one. The backslider in heart shall be filled with his own ways, and a good man shall be satisfied from himself. So, the faithless and the faithful receive what is due to them according to their works. That was not the one. I wanted the next one's 22. My bad. All right. Do they not err that devise evil? What a great rhetorical question. Do they not err that devise evil? But mercy and truth shall be to him or to them that devise good. So again, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, you could spend your time planning on how to tear others down to make yourself look good, or you could plan on building people up and doing good to them. The former is an error, and the latter receives faithful covenant love. So there are like whole explosion in my head, just like moral realism and moral facts, but that's never mind. I'll just do that for myself. All right, last one will be 18:3. All right. When the wicked cometh, then cometh also contempt. And this word's hard. And with ignominy, reproach. So ignominy, that's dishonor. So with dishonor, reproach. And what I wanted to share with you was a saying that my pastor down in Tennessee, Brother John Black, he's with the Lord now, but he had a saying, and it rings true every time I think about it. He had a saying, it's like, what do people think when they see you coming? Oh, great, here comes help. Or, oh, great, here he comes. What do people think when they see you coming? When the wicked cometh, then cometh also contempt. Your reputation precedes you. Does it spur on contempt and disrespect and dishonor, or joy because help is coming? Help is on the way. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you for your word. And I pray that we could take these things and be encouraged to have integrity in our lives. Lord, that we wouldn't be religious hypocrites, that we would honor you in our mind, in our hearts, but have that come out in our actions and practical righteousness. Lord, I didn't get to how the gospel fits into this. We'll get to that next week. But Lord, thank you for giving us your Son, who was perfectly wise, upheld your standard of integrity his whole life, and then suffered the consequences as if he hadn't. Lord, thank you for imputing our injustice to him and his justice to us. Thank you for giving us a new life, that we can slowly become more and more holy like you. Lord, help us to worship you. Lord, be with Pastor as he preaches your word. Lord, help us to sing praises to your name because you're good and you deserve it. In Jesus' name, amen.